I'm Jessica Phillips. I'm the editor-in-chief of Butane Propane News. Thank you for joining us and welcome to How to Employ Field Data and Routing Software to Maximize Your Propane Delivery, sponsored by Advantage Route and presented by Butane Propane News. Today's webinar will help you learn how to connect the dots with tank monitoring data and route management software to improve your team's daily propane route operations and increase your team's productivity both in the field and in the office. We'll focus on how propane companies can effectively capture data from their tank monitors in the field and seamlessly integrate it into their daily workflow to make data-driven business decisions, improve customer service, and increase productivity. It's now my pleasure to introduce our speakers. David Crotill is the former CEO of Advantage Route Systems, now called Advantage Route Inc., after the merger with Prism Visual Software. David is a recognized expert in routing and logistics technology. With decades of experience in the industry, he has played a key role in developing innovative software that optimizes delivery operations and improves efficiency. David's deep knowledge of route accounting software makes him a sought-after resource for companies who are looking to enhance their routing strategies. Though retired, David remains a consultant to Advantage Route. Chris Savage is the general manager of Joe Rider Propane, which is a trusted name in propane services in Fort Worth, Texas since 1954. Chris ensures that residential, commercial, and agricultural customers receive reliable fuel services, expert maintenance, and quality installation. As a valued Advantage Route customer, Chris utilizes cutting-edge route management technology to optimize operations, improve efficiency, and deliver exceptional service to his customers. Josh Alpuerto is a recognized expert in the propane industry, specializing in tank monitoring solutions and operational efficiency. As Otodata's Western U.S. Sales Director, Josh works closely with propane companies to implement cutting-edge technology that enhances delivery optimization, cost savings, and customer satisfaction. Josh's deep knowledge and hands-on approach make him a trusted partner for propane providers looking to streamline operations and maximize their resources. Otodata is also a trusted Advantage Route partner. So at this time, it's our pleasure to begin the webinar. Please stay tuned after the presentation for our interactive Q&A panel session. Throughout the presentation, we welcome you to send your questions to our speakers through the Q&A feature you see on the screen, and we will get to as many of those as possible. So now I'm going to turn it over to David to get things started. David?
Great, thank you, and like to add my welcome as well, Jessica. We appreciate all of you that have taken time out of your busy day to join us. We're really excited about this opportunity to share the kind of technical side of things as well as the practical side. And obviously what we're really looking forward to is your various questions that you'll have at the end of the presentation so that we can really drill to the bottom of whatever questions you may have had. We realize we see many of you at trade shows and have opportunities to visit with you, but Josh and Chris really do appreciate your help with this as well. We expect to have a lot of fun here. Let me just kind of give you a little idea of what we're going to be covering today. So we'll go ahead and here's our table of contents, which we'll go through three kind of distinct phases before our question and answer. Josh is going to kick things off with talking about the Otodata monitoring, how data is collected. He'll even be sharing some ideas about the online portal that they have, as well as key takeaways. And we realize that many of you are not new to Otodata. They've certainly become an industry leader in the last few years. And we look forward to kind of seeing what goes on under the hood, if you will. And then I'll be taking a few minutes to talk about how we integrate the Otodata information as it comes directly from the tank monitors into our dispatching screen as we create routes, as well as how we present this to our service technicians / drivers as they're actually making deliveries. And then to wrap things up, before we start the question and answer, Chris from Joe Rider Propane is going to share with you his practical side of using this over the last few years. So that's kind of what we're going to do for the next hour. To start things out, we'd like to get your involvement and have you reply. We've got about 5 different poll questions that are going to pop up here during the presentation. And so this first one is, have you ever received a midnight call from a customer who ran out of gas and needed an emergency delivery? So if you would, go ahead and just choose A, B, or C. one of those three options. We're going to give you about, each time we do these poll questions, like I mentioned, there's 5 of them, we'll give you about 20 or 30 seconds here to pick the answer that you think represents you and your business the most. Okay, so we got about another 10 or 15 seconds. I see many of you have already reached up there and clicked one of the 3 answers. We appreciate that, and we're going to actually show you the results as soon as we get most of the response in. We'll wait another 5 seconds or so you have a chance to do that. We find that participation with these surveys helps us to get some answers, kind of bring us all onto a common ground. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up and go to the next slide and show you the results. Okay, so here we go. Occasionally, about half of you say occasionally. A few of you say yes too many times. And then, of course, there's always 1 or 2 that says you're really lucky. So maybe go to Las Vegas this weekend or buy a good lotto ticket and run with that. So kind of gives an idea of some of the things we actually run into in the field. So what I'm going to do now is push this over to Josh, and he is going to go ahead and present some of the technical things behind the scenes with Nee-Vo and Otodata.
Thanks, David. I appreciate that. Hello, everyone. Like David said, my name is Josh Alpuerto. I'm the Western Sales Director for Otodata Tank Monitors. We'll kind of start this off by going over our tank monitors and kind of what the availability is for it. As you can see here, our monitoring service is very affordable. So that's one of the things that you're going to be looking at. That's what most people look at whenever you're talking about the return on investment or the availability to scale monitoring and routing software. That's a big proponent that most people look at. Other than that, our monitors are dual SIM'd, AT&T and Verizon using CAT-M and NB-IoT, which is different than the standard 4G, 5G that you see a lot of the other carriers using. We do have a direct carrier relationship with them, meaning we deal directly with AT&T and Verizon with any of the monitoring that happens through that. Our battery life is among the longest in the industry. It's up to 20 years. We do have GPS positioning on our monitors, on every single one of the monitors. We have a 5 years, no questions asked warranty. It's very quick and easy installation. Our monitors are already pre-activated whenever they go out into the field. So you literally just plug them into the remote ready gauge and you're ready to go. They are fully encapsulated and waterproof, meaning a lot of the times with the underground tanks and those pits, a lot of people are worried about that technology being in those pits. Obviously, we have brackets and things of that nature, but that being the case, it is fully encapsulated and waterproof. We also have a full-size antenna and a hybrid battery pack that allows us to do the up to 20 years of battery life, because obviously we all know as you're installing monitors, as you're paying for this technology that's out there, the last thing that you want to do is go back out and replace a majority of the technology in 5 years and 3 years. That just creates a worse ROI for you, and we understand that. We do have the lowest failure rate in the telemetry industry. It is 100% tested for that as well. We do have another poll question. What percentage of what percentage of your tanks have tank monitors today? We'll go ahead and give you guys some time to answer that real quick. And as we do a little bit of a story, obviously I worked with a propane company prior to working with Otodata for about 10 years, and that was something that's always on the top of mind, right? How many tank monitors should we be putting out there? How many make sense, and really kind of doing an ROI and a return on investment is a huge important takeaway from this internally. So give it about 10 more seconds here. Alrighty, we're gonna go ahead and move on. So we got about almost 50% of you say 1 to 25% of the tank monitors, 26 to 50. Got a couple saying none, and 100%, 15%. That's actually more than I thought it'd be. This lines up to what we see in the industry on the telemetry side. So thank you guys very much for answering it. One of the biggest questions is how do we collect the data, right? Or how often do we collect the data with the tank monitoring? Well, our tank monitors wake up every couple minutes and kind of look for asks itself a couple questions, right? It wakes up and says, okay, if any of these questions, if the answer is yes, then we're going to go ahead and give you a new reading. The first and foremost one is, at a very minimum, you'll get a reading every 24 hours since the monitor last communicated. After that, it is consumption-based reading, and a lot of that is based upon battery conservation, right? Obviously, if a tank's moving, do you really want a reading if the tank hasn't moved at all within that 24 hours? To conserve that battery life, that's kind of the route that we went. So the first thing it's going to ask is, has it been 24 hours since last communication? If the answer is yes, it goes ahead and reads in. The next one is, has there been a 5% consumption or more? If the answer is yes, it will give you a new reading. So since the last communication, if your monitor or if your tank level is drawing at that 5% mark, it will give you a new reading. The last three are based upon the marketer making the decision on what that level is, right? So that's low alarm, critical low alarm, and a rapid draw. So if any of those are set into the system, however you guys decide to set it, it will give you new information based upon those things. And we think based upon all of that, we have a pretty big understanding of how that consumption on that tank is being used and if you need to be notified or not for those instances. Next poll question is, do your drivers use an app from the tank monitoring company to see tanks? So any apps or website portal that you give to your drivers in order to monitor those tanks to see if anything needs to be delivered to them, things of that nature. Go ahead and select A or B, yes or no, and we'll go ahead and move on to the next slide. With that being said, I kind of know most people are using their office to do it, but there are quite a few people that also use their drivers because obviously, through many years before a lot of this technology took place, most everybody had the route books that they were going through and kind of having the drivers go through that. And with everything that's going on right now and how hard it is to find drivers and that knowledge that's been in that industry for those drivers is kind of obviously retiring and whatnot and starting with a new batch. So we'll go ahead and give it 5 more seconds and we'll move on. So about 41% say yes, their drivers see all that information from the field. And then it seems like around 60% probably keep it in-house. That's as close to 50-50 as we can get. So that's interesting. Moving on. So this is going to be our Nee-Vo portal. So this kind of goes directly with that poll question. Our availability to access our portal anywhere is through a website. You can go onto the website, whether it be a tablet, your phone, a regular desktop computer. It is fully featured and very easy to use. We have a request for service in there that directs you to our tech service team, and through that ticketing can help you out with any situation that you might run into. We have great reports in there. And free training as well. On there, you can see all of your assets. If your monitor is on a tank, they are, like I said before, fully GPS enabled. So you can go onto that map and see exactly where all of those are as well. So we do have a 24/7, 365 emergency hotline as well. And most of our tech support is available for a majority of the country through business hours. But again, we do have that emergency availability for most people as well, if anything were to happen. Key takeaways, other than the key takeaways that we have here, I'm going to kind of go over some of the things to look for as you're shopping for monitors and some of the things to kind of keep in mind as you're putting these things out in the field. Biggest thing to keep in mind when shopping for monitors is the battery life. Like I said before, that's going to directly affect your return on investment. And with that being said, that's obviously something that you want to be taking a look at when you're shopping for monitors, is that battery life. The connectivity, as far as the dual SIMs or the SIM cards in there, the industrial SIMs, making sure the technology is bulletproof, because again, this is a technology that you're putting an investment in, just like anything else, and you want to ensure that it works and that the availability to put it out in the field is there. One of the biggest things that I can say about installs and stuff like that is having a plan, guys. Everybody needs to make sure that they have a plan when they're getting ready to put these monitors out there. How are we going to get the information from the field into our back office, into the whoever's going to be putting the information into those monitors, customer names, stuff like that. How are we going to get that information into the office and ensure it's correct, right? Second thing that you want to look at is running an ROI report, right? Make sure that the monitors, the tanks that you decide to put monitors on, are we getting the investment that we want to from it? And last but not least, it's when you're going through it, in really paying attention to inventory control. How quickly are we getting these out there? How you're ordering them? You know, inventory control is going to be huge. There's, you know, quite a few people that I talk to on a daily basis that ultimately, you know, want to order more monitors or whatever the case may be, but still have quite a few in their possession that have not gotten out in the field. So again, inventory control is something also to be looking at when it comes to that. And then also, last but not least, it's integrations, right? Making sure that we can integrate, or whatever monitor provider you go with integrates into a lot of our great partners like Advantage Route. So moving on from there, we'll go ahead and let David take the next poll question. Thank you very much for your time, everyone.
So Josh, thank you. Appreciate what you've contributed. There are a couple of questions that have popped up. We'll just wait and do all of those at the very end. So we'll be sure to address those. Now, one of the things that people talk to us about is, how do I integrate this with my existing route accounting, route distribution system, and being able to see the information that Otodata collects? So to start out, we're going to start with this poll here. Looks like I've talked long enough that most of you have already answered it. I'll give you another 10 or 15 seconds. But the question is, do you use other additional software in conjunction with tank monitoring? So we'll let that go for another 3 or 4 seconds, and we'll share the results with you. Okay, so here's what we've had as far as replies. Most of you, nearly 88, 89% of you, say that you do have software that goes beyond the Nee-Vo supplied app or the Otodata. So that's what I'm going to be addressing here, is how do you integrate this? Obviously, Otodata does a fantastic job of collecting good, reliable data, and the idea is that it is available to their own app, which allows you to share that with your customers or use it internally. We go one step further at Advantage Route Systems. We actually integrate and pull that data as it's being collected directly into our software platform. And so there's a few steps to do in order to make this happen. Typically with Otodata, there's a software, an API key, which allows us to do that kind of talking back and forth. And it is a bi-directional communication. Within our system, we treat each monitor as a separate piece of equipment, and we associate that with one or more tanks that your customer may have at their location. And so if you have 3 tanks manifolded together, then all of that actually works as a big system. Obviously, Otodata collects a lot of important information on tank size, address, customer account number, etc. By utilizing their existing system, we synchronize with that. And it can be bi-directional, meaning you can go have your tanks there, already assign an Otodata monitor to it, and then have our system link that up with other information. So it is a little bit of a process to get it started, and kind of like what Josh was saying, you need a plan. You need to figure out, how are we going to do this? Rarely does someone just go out in a weekend and drop 2,000 or 3,000 monitors on all their tanks and expect it to work on Monday morning. Typically, it starts out a few at a time. So that gives us a chance to organize the software process to link everything together. And we have a couple of tools that really make that easy to do, not only as you first implement it, but as you continue on and put additional monitors on or change them out, have customers that quit, etc. All of that is typically done through our initial software setup. Now, once that's been accomplished, the next thing that we want to do is start to show you what's going on. So from our basic dispatch board, we have routes that are available within the system. And you'll notice that they have little dots here. Green. In this situation, they're all green. They can be yellow or red if there's a lower tank level, etc. And then we have within our system the ability to calculate a percent full on the tank based on degree days, kind of the classical method, or anything here that has these little ears on it represents kind of an antenna. That's saying that a meter was the monitor was read and that data was updated to the dispatch board. So you tend to count on that information to be much more accurate than things that are guesstimated based on degree days, past performance, etc. And like Josh said, typically the worse this data is 24 hours out of date, and oftentimes it may even be less than that. But for most, particularly residential customers, that works out pretty well for us. So once again, as you see what's going on in the field, these numbers are updated so that if there needs to be dispatching decisions made about who you want to visit, you can immediately see a low or critically low tank level and arrange to prioritize that so your customers are kept from running out of gas. Now, we also use it not just what's going on a real-time basis, but in building routes, you have the flexibility of likewise seeing this data. And this one's probably a little bit more colorful. As you can see here, we have red, green, and yellow, as we like to call it, our traffic light. And the little arrows here are pointing to tanks that, once again, are monitored compared to others that have no monitor at all. So in that situation, you tend to trust that a little bit better. From here, you can literally build a route picking customers that are critically low or geographically. These are actually on a geographic basis where you can see that and pull it together. The other thing that we do in addition to just presenting this data is if we detect that there is a service fault, that the Otodata data is coming in, says there potentially is a stuck gauge or low battery, etc., our system will automatically create a service order that goes into our unscheduled orders that then allows you to see what needs to be done and schedule that along with your various deliveries. Another situation too is in the order entry, which I didn't have a slide. If a customer calls in and is nervous that they're out of gas, or perhaps they're a remote customer, they have a cabin, they're going to be up for the weekend, they want to make sure that they have plenty. As you take an order from a customer, you also see this data. So it's really proliferated throughout the entire system, no matter who's touching it in customer service, dispatching, etc., so that customers, so that your employees are able to clearly and quickly see what's going on without having to toggle back and forth over to the Nee-Vo app. Now, the next slide I'd like to show you here is how we take this data from the desktop and populate it to the driver's handheld. So as he's out making deliveries, he likewise has all of this same data available at his fingertips with his normal route delivery software. So here you can see they've got some stops scheduled down here near the bottom, pointing out that you have a couple of customers that are here. I think the low level is set at 30%, so it's turning orange, and it has the little antennas here, once again, indicating that the data was captured from the monitor recently so that you know it's a little bit more accurate. Likewise, if you go into the customer information, you have the same kind of ability here as well. So once again, our main goal is to capture the data on a frequent basis and then be able to present that at numerous spots of your business. Same way with off-route stops. If you're in an area, perhaps you've completed your normal stops for the day, you still have 300 or 400 gallons left on your truck, you can look and see people in the nearby area and the amount of propane left in their tanks as well. So it really helps you to effectively service your customers. Okay, so that's the basics of what we do within the Route Manager software in order to present that at various levels throughout your organization. Now, we want to talk about real-world experience. So I'm going to turn the time over to Chris Savage from Joe Rider Propane, and he's got his own topics here.
Thanks, David. As you said, I'm Chris Savage with Joe Rider Propane. So we're going to give you some real-world benefits of using software and the monitors in the real-world situation of a propane company. So kind of give you a little bit of background. We've been using the routing software with David for about 20 years now. We've been using the monitors for about 3 years now. So we found a lot of benefit to both. For the benefits of using the software, it's does all the things you want it to do. It's a great place for customer data. So it's going to have all your customer information. It's going to have your tank data. Your routing software is on there as well. It's a great place for invoicing. It's a one-stop shop to send invoices to people. Your CRRs can actually send emails to those with those invoices. Our AR has improved as well. You can actually use the email or the text version to actually ask for money or get payments from customers. As far as the cost savings, especially with the monitors, we started about 3 years ago. Probably like most of you guys, we kind of tiptoed into it because we weren't sure what it was going to be like or how it was going to affect us. To kind of give you a real life example, after the first year, we were able to do 10% more gallons in about a 7-month period, and that was able to do that in 421 less stops from the year previous. So that kind of gives you a glimpse into how effective and how efficient the routes can become. It also allows us to scale our routes. You may think you need a bobtail or you need to buy another truck. You may think you need another driver. Using the routing software and using the monitors allows you to kind of see how you can compact your routes and probably do more with less sometimes. And that's been a big deal for us as we continue to grow. It's also reduced our overtime. We very rarely have any overtime now. We're able to get our routes compacted and we're able to see who actually needs gas versus just sending someone to go look at a tank to see if it needs something. It also eliminates zero fills. That's one of the biggest reasons we went to the monitors. As you all know, there's nothing more frustrating for a driver to pull up to a customer location and they get there and they don't need gas from the old way of using route books and something like that. So you've actually got the answers to the question, knowing if the customer does need gas. So you can pull all those zero fills off your routes and make your drivers happy and make your routes a lot more efficient. Customer feedback. The customers absolutely love the monitors. There's actually an app they can log on to. You'll find out most of them are very tech savvy nowadays and they like to look on there and see the app for themselves. They can actually communicate with the customer on that app. They can actually talk to you as well. They can actually monitor their gas usage. So a lot of people will call in and say, I don't know why I've used this much gas. A lot of us have had that conversations because it was 10 degrees outside. There's actually a chart on their monitor app that will show them when their gas usage, they can actually look on them for themselves. They're not just going by on what you're telling them. So they can actually look and see, they can pull reports from it. Very cool for them to do that as well. Additional benefits, we're able to see leak detections. So you can put alerts on there if people are using more gas than normal. It'll actually give us an email alert and let us go see if that tank is actually leaking or call the customer. Extreme weather plans. We're in Texas. I know you guys in the north think we don't ever get weather. We actually had 2 weather-related weeks this week where it was 0 degrees. So it allows you to kind of see who actually needs gas, or if there's, it's ice on the roads or something like that, and you're having a hard time getting gas in from supply or something like that. You're able to kind of see where you can kind of put your gas to the customers that mostly need it the most. It's really helped us on that too. One other I didn't put on here, we've all had trucks break down. So you maybe have a driver in the middle of a route, your truck breaks down, and instead of freaking out and saying they've got 10 more stops to go, you can actually pull up and see, okay, these are the stops we know we need to go today. You can easily reroute your drivers with the routing software and get those people over there in a timely manner. And then you may be able to pull, 4 or 5 of those stops off that you can put on the next day, just because you know that customer is at maybe 20% where you wouldn't know what they were before. So those are some just generic real life things that we found on our side of the business. I reiterate what Josh said: when you go into the monitoring stuff, have a plan. Your plan's going to change. Just be flexible, but there's no way I'd go back to the old route books and stuff like that and not knowing the answer to the question. I think that's the biggest thing for us, is we kind of know who has it, who needs gas, and who doesn't. So if you guys have any questions, now it's time to kind of put them in the question thing. I think David's going to do one more poll question for us, and then we'll kind of answer any questions you guys might have.
Yeah, I'll go ahead now and go to the next poll question. And yes, there was one question that actually was directed to you, Chris, that maybe you can answer during the poll question. And just repeat again some of your efficiency gains, and maybe slow it down so that they can take some notes. But
absolutely.
Let me start the poll question, and then while that's going on, why don't you talk about that once again? So the question for this poll is: do you actually charge your customers for providing tank monitoring as a service? Yes, it's paid. No, it's included, and we're still thinking about it. So while we're waiting, do you want to go ahead and tell us those numbers you ran off kind of at the beginning?
Yeah, so the question was, can you repeat some of the efficiency gains? So after year 1, we kind of looked back on what we were doing before monitors, which was route books, and we were kind of doing call-ins and stuff like that, like most every propane business does to start out with. We were able to find out that we did 10% more gallons in a 7-month period with 421 less deliveries. So that was our biggest thing. And at that time, we probably only had 200 or 300 monitors in the field. To kind of put that in perspective, 3 years later, we've got 2,000. So we've kind of tiptoed into it and just kind of going that first little thing. And a lot of them, what we did, we put them on our lease tanks. I think lease tanks is a great place to start. If you do not have any monitors and you're worried about how I'm going to do this, put them on your lease tanks. You own your lease tanks. You actually control the rent on those lease tanks, and they're yours. So going and putting them on there enables you to kind of see what their usage is. It also enables you to see if they're getting gas from somebody else. If all of a sudden that monitor goes up and you didn't make a delivery, your lease customer maybe got gas from somebody that they weren't supposed to. So that's a really easy way to get started with some of these monitors.
Okay, perfect. Before we go on to additional questions, let's just look at the poll results here. So 40% of you roughly actually do charge your customers, and that'll come up in the questions, how much do you charge? Half of you roughly say it's a free thing, and 17% of you are still considering if you're going to charge or not. So maybe I'll just shoot this to Chris first. What about you? Are you doing it as a paid service? What is some of the logic and the questions you asked yourself as you were trying to decide whether or not to charge and how much?
So we started as we were charging our lease customers, obviously, because we rolled that into our lease fees. We were actually doing it for free for the first year for a lot of customers. And then we decided to we've got a program called Joe Rider Rewards, which actually gives you a break on your gas price too. So we were able to go back and visit with customers, and we were able to actually charge. We charge for all of our monitors now. We've actually found out that it's a great thing. People will buy into it. We were upfront with them and kind of told them what the cost was for us. We don't make any money off of it. It's just kind of we're passing on to the customer. But we've also done where we get it to them free for a year for them to see how it works. One thing we've done too, if you have an out of gas, so if you're a will call customer and you're out of gas and you have to do a leak check, it's actually cheaper to purchase or use the monitors than it is to do a gas check for us. So that's kind of a thing we've used to kind of get people to come on board with it. Right now, going to spring, we're doing a thing where we call all our will call customers and try to get them on board with the monitors to give them an opportunity. But yeah, we didn't charge it first, but now we charge for all of ours.
And roughly, what are you charging then? Do you do it by the month, quarter, or year?
We do it by the year. So in ARS, it's great. You're able to do it just like a lease so at least charge. So we set it up on the tank. You actually set up the monitor as a piece of equipment, and it automatically does it. And then we require to have a credit card on file, so it automatically just charges that credit card, and it's simple. The customer appreciates that, and it's a really simple way to do it.
Super. So Josh, going back to you, there was a question earlier from a customer or attendee that said, why do some monitors report more than 3 times a day and some only 1 time a day without asking for more reports? So maybe you can take that question, as well as if you had anything else you wanted to add before we kind of open up to general questions.
Yeah, absolutely. So as far as the reporting goes, where it would report in more than 1 time a day, just like on the previous slide that we were going over here, has a lot to do with the consumption, right? The consumption of the tank. If it's going down more than 5% per day, right, per level percentage, it's going to read in more often, right? So if you have a very high moving tank with a lot of consumption, it's obviously going to read in a lot more often than one that's not having a lot of usage.
Okay, super. Yeah, I think that's one thing that within any system you still have to monitor is not only the current level, but we like to use the term velocity. And this is kind of triggered by your 5% consumption. You know, you have some residential customers that may be at 30%, and that's going to last them, particularly in the spring or heaven forbid summertime, for 2 to 3 months. Or a chicken house in the middle of the wintertime at 30%, you better be out there filling up their 2 1,000-gallon tanks or something. So yeah, looking at both of those things is absolutely critical. I think there's another question here for you as well, Josh. Can you speak to how many SIM cards in the monitor can work for 20 years and to match the length of the battery life? That's a good one for you.
Absolutely. So with the SIM cards being dual SIM with both AT&T and Verizon, there's a couple different things here. Like I said before, we use Cat-M NB-IoT, which doesn't expire nearly as quickly as the 3G, 4G, and eventually 5G markets will, because those are very consumptive by your cell phones and things of that nature, where Cat-M is more of a machine-to-machine communication, right? So it's a lot more longevity in that communication. Also with the both Verizon and AT&T coming out with what they're calling non-terrestrial network, they put a whole bunch of satellites out there in low orbit, and essentially these monitors and cell phone providers are looking to basically have coverage everywhere, right? Is ultimately the plan. And so that technology is coming very quickly here, but essentially our monitors have all of that technology to kind of push forward to extend past that battery life.
Yeah, I think that's really important. As you look back over the last 20 years as 2G and then 3G networks came online, there's some rather dramatic differences between the technology of those. I think to some degree we've seen more stability as well as backwards compatibility. So I've yet to hear, is there 6G on the ropes? Have you heard anything about that, Josh? Is there something?
You know, I'm not sure. I know with the changing in the data and everything else, you know, the closing out of the Gs, I call it, are a lot quicker. Again, Cat-M NB-IoT with that, you're looking at more machine to machine. So it's not really necessarily what's on your cell phone at that aspect, right? Because those are more end user consumptive technology.
Okay, super. Let's see, additional questions that have come in. Have we had anything else? We did have one that was kind of related, it seems, to a very specific incident about installing equipment onto 2 separate applications with 2 separate tanks. I think we'll take that one offline and get back with that attendee, because it doesn't quite have general interest here at this point in time. So we have additional questions? Okay, so we'll just go ahead then. And some of you asked questions before we started, and we'll let either Josh or Chris take either one of these. Number one, how do you guard against monitors that might fail in the field or gauges that might get stuck besides an inactivity warning in the monitor portal? So Josh, probably should toss that one towards you.
Which number is that?
It was the first one I had on my list from questions from registrations.
Okay. As far as the monitors, I mean, the best thing to do, we have most of our monitors, it's below a 0.5% error, right? Within that 0.5%, obviously, any manufacturing defects and stuff like that is 0.25%, right? The other 0.25%, you're looking at most of it being comm trouble, right? So the monitors were put in locations that currently the cell signal isn't the greatest, right? With that being said, I would say that our monitors, we have what's called the tech app that you can test the monitors if you're in kind of a spotty coverage area that could allow you to know whether or not it's a prime location for a satellite unit, right? Other than that, looking at the at your dashboard, seeing which ones might be having a concern, is definitely something you can do. We have an availability in there to see what problematic monitors might be out there, and starting a ticket with our tech support team to help out with that.
Super. Another question for you, Josh, and then we'll get one over here to Chris. How do I input customer information on Otodata? Do you want to kind of give an overview of what kind of the normal installation / startup process is?
Yep. Mostly you have to do that from the dashboard. It's through what I call the edit screen, and it's going to have most of your information there. So your customer name, your address, location, right, tank size, things of that nature are going to go in there. We also have a couple other functionalities in there to help out with, underground tank inspections that are needed, regulator dates, things of that nature. But all that's going to be in the edit screen, and you can absolutely do that from the field, or write down the most common information, put that on there, and send it back to your office staff to do in the office. Like I said, prior to coming up with that plan and making sure that it fits your company the best is obviously hugely important before a lot of these bigger processes start of scaling it.
Super. And basically, anytime a person does sign up for your service, they are given access to your web portal, and that's basically the primary way that they're going to start scanning the monitors themselves and putting in the supplemental information that you need to get started.
Absolutely.
And what's typical? In a half an hour, can you set up a new account and begin to actually input data?
So typically, like I said prior to, our monitors are already activated whenever you go out there, right? So if you put a monitor on a tank and do not put any customer info in there, you'll still see the tank percentage of the monitor. You'll see a little gray bar out there, and you'll see it reading and everything like that. But really, it kind of depends on how much info you want to put in there. There's you can go as far as putting in just the customer's name and address, just a customer name, just an address. There's tons of different ways to do it, but in order to fill out everything in there, you're probably looking at a 4-minute turnaround per unit of putting in data.
Yep. And I think with if you have tanks already set up within our system to synchronize, typically is much quicker. Obviously, there's on the side of the Otodata monitor a little QR code, if you will, that you can scan, which would then likewise link things up and pull up critical information as well. Okay, the next question is from a fellow Texan, Chris, but I think the question is going to end up going to Josh. He's talked about that they've tried 8 out of 60 monitors. What is the survival rate for the monitors in inclement weather, such as tornadoes, flooding, hail, and freezing? Never freezes in Texas, right? So anyway, you want to give us some ideas about some of the failure rates?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we haven't had really that problem with failure rates. The only thing we've had issues with, and I think it's for everything, is just underground tanks. So we've kind of started putting those on the top of the lids versus underground, because we do get a lot of water here. Where we're located over here, there's actually 2 giant lakes. So the ground's saturated a lot. So honestly, from a failure rate, it's kind of trial and error. We've learned from that. So we don't put them under the domes anymore. We put them on top. But as far as that, most of your monitor and Josh can kind of speak to that. They're going to have a warranty. I know with us, it's just no questions asked. We just send it back. But I mean, we really haven't had any issues with monitor failures at all. Our biggest issue, I think, is Josh's the dreaded tank gauge. So this last winter, we had 2 out of gases. That's it. Out of thousands of deliveries, we had 2, and it was because of a 420 gauge getting stuck twice, and it was slammed shut. And we learned a lesson on that. Now we run reports and we see if there's a static. So if you have a static tank that hasn't used gas in a while, we know it's going to be stuck. But on the other side of that, if it didn't have a monitor, you're not going to know anyway. Your driver is probably going to swing by there, look at the tank, get the gauge on the tank, and say, "Oh, it's at 80%," and move on. So that customer is probably going to run out of gas no matter what. So you're going to have those challenges, but it's not something that's going to derail you at any point. So I don't know if you want to add to that, Josh, go ahead. But those are just some of the things we've had to deal with.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Yeah, I mean, as far as the warranty, it's pretty self-explanatory. I mean, our team, get a hold of our tech support team. They'll help you out with what it might be, and if it ends up turning out to be a monitor that's bad, absolutely warranty, 5 years for a buy, 7 years for a hardware as a service. But it is, the warranty would replace those units. As far as natural disasters and things like that, I mean, our monitors. I use them in northern Minnesota. We use them in Canada, and then obviously Arizona, Texas. Extreme heat, extreme cold weather, snow, things of that nature. It's been tested in most everything that there's been out there. Even a lot of the fires that happened in the West, 2 summers ago that happened all the way out there. Surprisingly, our monitors still worked, even though the things were melted on the outside. The plastic was melted on the outside. I mean, they're pretty bulletproof. So, other than a tornado flying it away, the good news is they got GPS on them too, so you can probably be able to find it after the fact. So,
and that's covered by warranty
still, but you'll probably be able to find the monitor.
That's great. So, next question for Chris. It's kind of an esoteric question. If you were to do it all over again, what would you do differently?
So, Josh touched on this, and I did too. Have a plan. So, I'll be honest, we jumped in feet first. And if you know us, you know that's how we do it. David's known us for a long time, for 20 years, and we're going to go full board ahead. The biggest challenge you're going to have is probably an inventory standpoint. So right now we've got a full-time router. We've done that position. So that's a person that's all they do is route. And he also looks at monitors as well. So we've got 2 people that kind of look at the monitors and keep an eye on it. Our service techs are the ones that will go out and replace monitors if there are issues, but we're running reports daily. The setup for the monitors is amazing. I mean, you can use the data that they give you. So we were just kind of saying, okay, we just want to know what the percentage on this tank is. We really want to know other things too, like what is their usage or what's their run rate, stuff like that. So there's a lot of information and you can get overwhelmed. That's why I'm saying have a plan. Your plan's going to change over time though, and you're going to want to see more and more information as you go. But the biggest thing is an inventory. Have a plan of who you're going to give them to. Make sure you're using the data that's provided to you, and then make sure you're keeping track of your inventory. I know we had some monitors that the batteries had gone dead and stuff like that. And we found them sitting in a closet somewhere. All we had to do was send them back and get new ones. So just have a plan. That's probably the biggest thing I would do. But I would definitely not go back to route books and stuff like that. Like this is a game changer for all of us, no matter if you're big or small. It's going to help your business be more productive.
Super. I was given a reminder that there are some options across the bottom. If some of you want to actually see how it works or more detailed information, there's a button down there that says request demo. And if you click on that, we'll make sure you get in touch with the right people. And to that end, Josh, I'm going to push this one over to you. How do you recommend that prospective customers calculate an ROI on their investment? You want to give us some highlights of the things? I know Chris has mentioned some things, but what would you do, or do you have a sheet or something?
Yeah, absolutely. It's as easy as just getting in contact with your sales representative, getting in contact with me. We'll do a lot of the heavy lead work. We'll let you know exactly what we need from you as far as data goes. And then from there, we can basically go through your deliveries over the last year and say, hey, this is where you're doing really well. This is where I think we could help. And where monitoring we think makes sense, right? And for every company, it's going to be a little bit different. And that's why that's exactly where I would start, right? Because essentially through that plan, you'll get, okay, let's say we can only do 1,000 units this year in 2025. Well, what are the most important 1,000 tanks that's going to save you the most money, right? And we're more than happy to sign a non-disclosure agreement or whatever you need us to do before you give us the information and the data, and we can go from there. But that's absolutely what I would suggest is getting hold of your sales rep, getting hold of me, and I'll point you in the right direction. We can help you absolutely come up with that plan.
Yeah, this whole scenario has changed so much over the last decade. Obviously, tank monitors have been around for maybe 20 years. Am I exaggerating a little bit there? But I think what you found typically 20 years ago is a very high barriers to entry. The device was $500. The monthly monitoring fee was $15 or $20 a month. And so at that high of a level is really hard to justify an ROI. And oftentimes people would play the canary in the coal mine game. They might have a cluster of 10 houses in a community and they would put it on one of them. And if that customer who they historically saw had a higher use was low, then they'd go out and fill all the 10, 12, 15 tanks around that. However, I think now with the two things that have made a difference. Number one, the monthly fees and the device. But second is, I lost my train of thought, is the ability to charge the customers. And in that situation, you've gone from it just being an extra $8,000, $10,000 a year expense to actually generating revenue. And granted, I don't think anybody that I've seen has tried to get rich off of their customers. I think the highest fees that I've seen anywhere in the country was in Florida, and they were charging about $10 per month for monitoring, or I think they had a deal for $99 a year to offer that to their customers. So, certainly have seen that. And, it's the whole economics of this thing has just changed so dramatically over the last really 3 to 5 years that it's a game changer. You want to comment on that?
Yeah, to add on to that, I mean, it's funny because, really now with everybody using this technology, as far as, using the networks that are out there from Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, all of them, this is kind of the first time that we haven't had to, as an industry, rely on the customer as well, right? Because the first ones that came out were landline, and then it was Wi-Fi. A lot of people are asking, why Wi-Fi? Why don't we use Wi-Fi? How come a lot of those monitors don't have Wi-Fi? Well, the short answer to that is because it relies on your customer, right? What happens if your customer doesn't pay their Wi-Fi bill? What happens if they need to reset a modem? What happens, right? And this is fully autonomous to that. I mean, it's something that we can rely on, just our partnership between us and the marketer to really get that information. And I think it's much, much better.
Yeah, I think it's very obvious. And I think that ties into one other question that somebody had sent ahead of time. And that was, does this work for smaller customers, companies? If I only have 200, 300, 500 customers, does it make any sense to invest in this? And if so, what's your thoughts on that?
Absolutely, I think it does. I think it 100% makes sense, because whenever you're looking at it, whether it's 300 tanks or 30,000 tanks, ultimately you're going to be getting a return on it, right? And I would say, contrary or on the opposite end of that, I mean, I think it's very important to have it because it's a lot more manageable if you do have smaller tanks. And the scaling, I know Chris talked about the scaling, being able to scale your company to a bigger level. And really buying trucks and hiring drivers and hiring office staff and things of that nature, and the availability to do that with monitors on your tanks becomes a lot more digestible.
Perfect. Okay, we're kind of coming to the close of our hour. Chris, I just want to give you a chance to take 30 seconds, just any last minute thoughts, and then we'll turn it back over to Jessica.
No, thanks, David. I just want to reiterate, if you're on the edge and you're kind of wondering, should I do this or should I not do it? I encourage you to at least try. I know, talking to Josh or the other monitor companies, they've got plans for you. So, see what it does for your business. I think you'll see right away the huge benefits you have, and just the culture change you'll have as a whole as a company, from going from the old route books and the old, just, I think we've all walked in and don't know what we're doing that day. This allows you to kind of plan. I think the more you plan, the better your business is going to run. So I would just encourage you to try. We're here to answer any questions you might, or reach out. How we can help, we're happy to do that as well.
Perfect. Thank you. Josh, any last comment before we give it back to Jessica?
Thank you, everybody, for their time, and I appreciate it. Hopefully this has been very informative, and you know, see me if you guys need anything.
Super. Jessica, back to you.
All right, thanks, David. And also Chris and Josh, thank all of you for your words today. So everybody, now that we've wrapped up the Q&A, that brings our webinar to a close. So we want to thank our sponsor, Advantage Route, for this just plethora of helpful information that they've both shared and facilitated today. And thank you all attendees for your questions. You can download a copy of this presentation and access playback of the webinar at bpnews.com. Thanks again to David, Chris, and Josh for sharing your expert advice with us today. And have a great afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much.